Guys, let's be real. The Tale of the Dragons was a fail. The idea of new content for Age of Mythology is something that I've always wished for since the release of Extended Edition in 2014. However, what I wanted, and what I feel the vast majority of Age of Mythology lovers wanted, was something with the same creative depth of the original 4 civilizations. A reskinned civilization with barely any new mechanics was a disappointment, to say the very least. The poor networking didn't really help the matter, but I don't see this being fixed in Retold helping China in any way, shape, or form. So let's break down what was wrong with China, how it could potentially be fixed, and maybe some alternative paths that Retold could take with Age of Mythology. First and foremost, the campaign, to put it lightly, was not great. Borderland racist voice acting, a story which I can't remember. Some kind of interesting mechanics were there, but they were a little bit buggy, and a distinct lack of the original 4 gods being involved really made it feel super isolated. When you compare it to the New Atlantis, which is the Titans expansion campaign, you get to play as all 4 civilizations. You get to play against all 4 civilizations. It was a pretty bloody good story with great voice acting. In Tale of the Dragon, it's China versus China the whole way. We don't get to see the other factions at all. It's kind of like they don't exist in the same timeline as the OG civilizations, which simply doesn't work for me. You have to include Arcantos and friends in some way, shape, or form. Ignoring their existence misses out on not only nostalgia, but more importantly ties why this civilization gets to join in within some sort of lore in the Age of Mythology universe. It doesn't have to make 100% sense, but Amanra, Ajax, or Castor could definitely find their way over to China, or vice versa, and end up having a really cool story there. Beyond this, I still feel like the Fall of the Trident was the best told story in any real-time strategy game, and the potential of mythology and storytelling is just too good to go to waste. So when you redo this campaign and include any other new campaigns, focus on story first. That's what needs to happen. So to move on to what we are all really interested in, China. Oh my god. If you watched my video on the Tale of the Dragons extra units ruining the original 4 civilizations' unique identity, then we must first start with China's identity. In its current state, it can only be described as a jack of all trades, master of none type thing. While this wasn't a bad try, in practice it simply doesn't work because it's nearly impossible to find balance, and just nerfing or buffing random stuff ends up removing this civilization identity. So if you can't tell by now, I'm pretty much saying that China needs a complete redesign. So what I'm going to do is break it into 5 categories. We've got economy, military, technology, myth units, and god powers. There's tons of extra stuff that needs to be talked about, but this is where we're going to start. Economically, the original civilizations all have their unique attributes. Greek has a solid economy and needs to sacrifice economy to get favor. Egyptian has a bit of a weak economy that is boosted by the pharaoh and also is boosted by only needing to build buildings to gather favor. Norse gets a ridiculous economy with movable drop sites and fights for favor. Atlantean doesn't need to worry about drop sites at all, or favor for that matter, because they get it through their town center. And basically you can see that they're all quite different. It's very asymmetrical. China comes along and says, you can build buildings to gather favor, but not only that, you can get anything out of those buildings. Food, gold, wood. And not only that, you get to build a lot of them, which kind of doesn't work for me. Building 10 gardens is just dumb from a city building point of view. There's simply not enough room. Beyond this, I've always liked the idea of a garden growing. So why not make it do this? Build the garden, then task the villagers on it to make it grow and give more favor. or research technologies in the garden to generate more favor with additional benefits. This fixes the build space problem, gives players a real decision to make with either their villages or their resources as to whether or not they want more favor or not. And that seems like it would fix the problem there. It'd become unique and be really, really great addition to the Chinese economy. Maybe something that's not so important but did bug me a little bit is the 3-in-1 granary. It's fine, but it's kind of boring. If it was me, I probably would have given China the best of both worlds. You get an ox cart type unit for food, and you get a storehouse for wood and gold. But I guess in the end, it is just economy, and economy can be a little bit boring, I guess. Moving on, let's talk about the military. Military is where you decide a civilization's identity the most. Do you give the civilization strong units, weak units, counter units? Strong in the classical age, strong in the heroic age, in the mythic age? Which is it going to be? Make a decision. China tried this thing of making cavalry the counter units and the barracks the soft counter units, kind of. You get the scout, which kind of count as archers. You get the mounted archer, which kind of count as cavalry. And you get the cataphract, which kind of count as infantry. This was kind of cool and honestly a bit of a refreshing creative change of pace from the rest of this civilization. But, I mean, there's always going to be a but here. There were two things that really just didn't work. The scout cavalry was a one population unit that was super ugly to control, didn't really counter archers, and was just a mess of a unit. There was no reason to change the cavalry design here. It could have just been a regular cavalry unit like the raiding cavalry or the hippocon. The mounted archer shoots arrows of which pretty much every cavalry can dodge. By the time the arrows start hitting the cavalry, the mounted archers would simply be getting cut down and lose, because while they do get bonus damage versus cavalry, so too do cavalry get bonus damage versus archers. So it just didn't work. Now, whether or not the simple solution was to make mounted archers have a higher track rating or not, I don't know. But to me, this unit just doesn't work and should probably go back to the drawing board. Moving on, the barracks was fairly simple. Halberdier, a nice solid infantry unit, no problems here from me, and the Chokonyu, which seemingly went through a few different iterations. I recall at launch it shot 2 arrows or something and was kind of busted, but now it's sort of just like a weaker version of the Toxote, which essentially means it has no use. Well, that's not 100% true. It's not that it has no use, it's just that there's a better unit that can do everything that the Chokonyu does, but better in the Immortal. The Immortal has both pierce and hack damage types. If it's a ranged unit, it'll use range. If it's a melee unit, it'll use melee. Not only that, their range attack doesn't miss, which is actually quite bonkers if you ask me. Anyway, it's not like the Immortal is a bad design. It just takes the role of a unit that already exists. So maybe the solution here is to give a different type of archer unit to round out the Chinese military a bit better. Moving on, technologically, China's unique technologies are simply put bland. Great technologies really help shape and round out a civilization. Greek gets Sylvan Law to push you into this raiding heavy playstyle. Forge of Olympus gives a huge boost to the economy. Thracian Horses gives bonkers cavalry. Temple of Healing pushes you to value keeping your high cost units alive so you can heal them back up. Egyptians get Necropolis to push for myth unit centric gameplay. Medjai and Sun-Dried Mudbrick to push Egyptians to have a fun time in the late game. Valley of the Kings for yet another really fun change of pace in game flow for allowing Migdol units to train nearly instantly. Norse gets Hall of Thanes, which makes Super Hersur, or Safeguard, which allows for defensive gameplay. Super Ulfsarks coming from Bragi and Call of Valhalla and Swine Array. And the best of all, Rampage, allowing the Temple side builds to be explosive with giant after giant coming out of them instantly. Even Atlantean's technologies were decent in some way, having the option to go down the hero route with Heart of the Titans and Heroic Renewal, or go for Super Cavalry with Poseidon's Secret and Lance of Stone. But when you look at China's, I just kind of scratch my head. The only good technologies to research are like bad versions of Shadoof, which is 5 grains, the bad version of Spear of Horizon in Unbridled Anger, the bad version of Forge of Olympus in Heavenly Fire, the bad version of Thracian Horses in Stirrup, and the bad version of Valley of the Kings in Celestial Palace. And probably the only good upgrade which other civs don't have is Golden Peaches, which is basically a combination of Thoth's tusks of Apedamark and Odin's Ringgiver. So you can kind of see that the creativity is just simply not there. The technologies don't push for certain types of gameplay. They just buff what you already want to do, and all in all, it's just bland. I mean, actually, I take this back. There is one interesting upgrade which is stolen from Uranus's unique ability, the Jade Rabbit. I mean, can't we just have anything unique here? Just one unique thing. All of the myth units upgrades basically just increase damage. Where's the fun? Speedy Centaur, jumping Nubites, Speedy Sphinx, tanky Frost Giants, Siege Weapon Cyclops. A myth unit upgrade has the potential to do so many cool things, but we just don't see that with China. Which brings me to myth units, obviously. Where's the fun? That's the big question. I mean, there is fun with the Chinese myth units, but they're in the mythic age. You get this siege bird, kind of like the Phoenix, but a little bit more centered on siege. You get the broken tiger, which is essentially like a super good version of the Anubite. And you get the reskinned Chimera. I mean, except for the dragon, these are all kind of cool ideas. Everything else though, man, why? Killing, you can't get hit by god powers. This is just annoying to the opponent, not fun for me. Terracotta Warrior gives me resources back when it dies and does a touch of damage that I don't notice. Just sad. Monkey King was actually a good concept, but just too expensive to use effectively. I don't know. I would have liked to see this unit be a little cheaper, a little stronger, and maybe have the stun ability unlocked in the upgrade or something. Could have been really awesome. The Pixiu gives me gold when it attacks. I mean, guys, come on. This is just lazy. Jiangxi has a super powerful special ability which allows it to continue raiding forever if it doesn't get met by heroes, which I think was a good effort. And, I mean, more of that could have been really cool. The Salamander was kind of the first real attempt at something creative where it can go through water. But unfortunately, it was just such a terrible unit that at most you saw the free one only. Then finally, God Powers. God Powers so far have had only 5 types of impact. Destruction, economic bonus, unit stat increase, teleportation, and special units. Let's count the destruction God Powers for the civilizations and see where the problems lie. China gets Barrage, Geyser, Uproot, Great Flood, and Inferno. That's 5. Greek gets Bolt, Curse, Lightning Storm, Earthquake. 2 of these are unique, so technically it's just 2. Egyptians get Locust, Tornado, Meteor. That's 3. Norse gets Forest Fire. I guess that's it. Maybe you can include Fimble Winter, but I kind of feel like that's more of a special unit creation thing. Atlantean gets Deconstruction, Spider-Lair, Chaos, Implode, and Tartarian Gate. One of these is unique, so at most this is 4. Spider-Lair is not really a destruction god power. It's more of a defensive destruction god power, so kind of just 3. And they're only in 2 ages, so I guess at most it's just 2. I think if you see the point, China's destruction god powers are really strong and they have a lot of them. Meaning the other god powers that China could potentially have are never seen and have limited to no impact. I honestly would wager that the majority of Age of Mythology fans can't even remember off the top of their head what the major god powers of China are. That might prove my point to some degree. So in closing, I wanted to remember that I want new content for Retold first and foremost. I think the coolest thing that can happen is new campaigns to follow Arcantus around in all of his exploits. I think the room for creativity, unique, asymmetrical civilizations from all different cultures is a really good thing for AoM to potentially have in the long run, so long that it's done with the same creative intent that Ensemble Studios put into the original 4 civilizations. Tail of the Dragon doesn't necessarily need to be completely swept under the rug, but what it does need is to be revisited, revitalized, and brought from what I honestly believe was the alpha stage of development into the customer-ready stage. That's my rant. My name's Boit. If you guys have any other thoughts on China, or any other cool additions that you want in Retold, leave that in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.